Hello and welcome to The Breakdown, brought to you by Racing Post. This is a place to be for all your expert analysis ahead of the much anticipated Rugby World Cup 2019. And I'm very pleased to say that I'm joined by two greats of the game. We have James Horwell and Tom May. They'll be taking you through the first round fixtures and telling you where to place your money. Welcome guys. How are you both doing?
Very well, thank you very much.
Very well. Looking forward to the World Cup. It should be an exciting tournament.
And Tom, just a question on England. I mean, the Italian coach, Conor O'Shea, he said that if any team can beat England, they'll go on to win the World Cup. Strong statement.
Yeah, it's quite a punchy statement. I don't know whether there's a bit of mind games. There's a bit of history between Conor O'Shea and Eddie Jones. I think England are in a pretty good place, and I think the most fortunate thing for Eddie Jones right now is that everyone's fit. Aside from Jack Noel probably, but actually you see the likes of Billy Vunipola, who's so key to England playing well, and he's been fantastic. And actually some people are saying, you know, why play him in the 4 warm-up games? Well, actually he's a player that needs to be playing to play his best. Fact that Manu Tuilagi, he looks frighteningly in good nick. You know, I think a player like that could come in and actually make a massive difference for England, where actually they've probably missed him over the past few years because of injuries.
Absolutely. Well, should we have a quick look then at the pools and which ones you're kind of most worried about? Groups of death, the best groups to be in. Should we start with Pool A then? I mean, on paper, it doesn't look too bad, does it?
Depends who you are. It looks a nightmare if you're Russian.
It looks pretty, and Samoa potentially.
Yeah. I don't know. We talk about the warm-up games, and some teams have got easier in inverted comma running than when the tournament starts. Ireland and Scotland don't have that luxury. They're straight off the bat into each other, and that's that first weekend is key for them both.
Could dictate how the pool ends up and which path, if they make it to the knockout, they take. And do they go through New Zealand or they get an easier run on the other side? I think New Zealand and South Africa are going to probably walk through that. I mean, they start off by playing each other as well, which will probably be arguably one of the games of the pool stages straight off the bat. So I think that'll again will dictate how the pool ends up. I can't see the other 3 teams in that pool doing much damage to either of those, and I expect both of them to get through to the quarterfinals quite easily. You're
not predicting a third straight World Cup victory, surely, are we, for New Zealand?
They're probably deservedly favourites, not by much though. I think their performances over the last 4 years probably allow them to be, but as I said, I think they've come back to the chasing pack a bit, and you know, it's anyone's game come knockout rugby.
I'm sure you hate saying that as well, but anyway, let's move on to Pool C at the moment. England play Tonga first. For England, I mean, I guess there's 3 teams that stand out, England being one of them, that, you know, would likely to go through.
Yeah, I think, you know, England would probably see themselves as favourites in that group, and they start against Tonga and then the States, so they've got a bit more of a build-up into those last couple of games. What does concern me is the French have been very French over the past few years and have not necessarily put the performances in that I think they should be. But now actually they're starting to turn that corner, and some of the names that they've got in their squad are outstanding players. That is a concerning game for me personally, that England-France fixture. I think Argentina, they've come close, haven't they, in the Rugby Championship, but they're not
but
quite the
I
team
think they seem to perform well at a World Cup. There's not many World Cups going back where they haven't made it to the quarterfinals, so they always tend to perform quite well at the big tournaments, as do France. So, you know, England might be a little bit nervous about these 2 games with teams that actually, you know, pull one out of the bag, surprise them, and then in the end they're in the last pool game into a real scrap to make it to the quarterfinals.
Tom, do you think England will be slightly stressed by what happened last time at the World Cup? Does that will that kind of hold to them at all? I mean, surely it's going to. The demons from 2015.
I think most of us have tried to forget it until you brought it up.
Yes, but
I think there'll be. It will provide some steely determination behind those guys that have experienced that, and there's a number of them that have. But I think they've got a good balance between experienced players that were involved in that have come out the other side, and also young players that are really adding to what that England team can produce. You know, I think it was a big disappointment, wasn't it? What England, what we saw England produce when we hosted the World Cup. I think they've now got a genuine opportunity to almost put that to bed and put it right. So that's me with my fingers crossed. Anyway.
Shame we don't have a Wales player here to gloat, isn't it? But anyway, maybe we'll a little bit later. We'll have to wait and see. And then Pool D. Again, I mean, they're kind of evenly balanced group, which we obviously always like to see. I mean, stand out there, you got Australia and Wales, really, haven't you?
Yeah, I think that's the big pool game. It's the second pool game for both teams. Australia start off with Fiji, who I think could be a banana skin game. If you look at their team on paper, their back line, I mean, it's probably arguably one of the most dangerous in the competition. If they can get everything running and they get the offload game going, it's a game you don't want to play in, but I'd expect Australia to be too strong there. And then there's the big game against Wales, which is the I think this guy's going to chat to us about.
Oh, funny that. We just said it'd be quite good
Good to see you.
if we had a Welsh international in the room to chat to us and gloat about 2015 and that England win. Firstly, why are you late?
Well, I just had a lovely tour of London, and turns out traffic's as bad as everyone says it is. So.
Yeah, it's pretty bad here,
It's not like Cardiff, yeah, we're behind time.
Okay, so have we got any forfeit these are going to do for being late, guys? Anything?
Probably not for camera, is it?
Probably not for camera. We'll get him to do it later on. Anyway, welcome. How are you?
Yeah, well, thank you.
Good. Well, you just missed the chat about 2015 England Wales. So we're gonna kind of have to go back to it because you were heavily involved, weren't you?
Well, so, yeah, it was by accident really, but yeah, we were kind of, I'm not sure what you covered, but it was a bit of bad luck with injuries and kind of got thrown in the deep end, but the boys did well in the end. So yeah, it was a good day, good night as well.
We were talking about the pools, and we just kind of got through to Pool D, and obviously that's kind of one that you'll be having your eyes on as well firmly. So we said Australia, Wales, Georgia, Fiji and Uruguay. We're kind of saying obviously Australia and Wales are top to come out of that one unscathed, really. Yeah, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's a competitive group. I mean, the dark horses in that group, probably Fiji. Look at their squad, it's just full of a lot of talented rugby players, which I'm sure is both teams, Australia and Wales, are going to be thinking it's potential banana skin. But yeah, I think both teams are, well, after the last couple of weeks, under the radar a bit now. I think it kind of suits Wales being a bit like that, rightly or wrongly. But Australia have been coming good at the right time. They always do. World Cup years, they're always in the mix. So I think those teams right now you expect to go through, but I don't think any of them are looking forward to playing Fiji.
Group of death and best group. Tom?
Best group in terms of the best
easiest
teams?
Easiest
Well,
path.
I think you'd have to say New Zealand, South Africa have got the easiest path. One wins, one loses, and they both go through.
Pool B then?
Toughest group. I think, I've got a horrible feeling if you're Scottish, you might be pretty disappointed. I think Japan and Samoa might have a little nibble at them. So I think the Irish will get out, and then I don't know who's going to finish second.
Okay, so that's Pool A. Lloyd?
I'd have to agree with Tom again. I think those, Scotland will be it's a tough task. I think USA beat them last summer as well, so that'll be in the back of their minds. So that'll be a tough group. And I think you said the easiest one, New Zealand and South Africa, will be confident to both go through there.
James?
Yeah, I think Pool B's the easy group. Not the easy, but obviously the big game is the first one for both teams, and then once they're through that, it's just about who can score as many points as they can. And I think the tough one is the English group. I think either someone out of England, France or Argentina isn't going to make it through the quarterfinals, which would be a big upset for them and less than the expectation that I think that they expect to get through.
I'm sure you're just saying Pool B because obviously New Zealand are in it. That's why James is saying that, I'm sure. Anyway, right, let's go on and let's jump straight into our first betting market, which is top try scorer. It's kind of maybe an easier one to pick. I mean, New Zealand have always pretty much been topping the tables in terms of the try scorer and the most points there. Would you think they're going to do it again? I guess we're looking at a matchup where you're going to have the biggest scoreline.
Yeah, and I think you've therefore got to look at the other teams that are within that group, and Italy, they're underperforming really, I think, and I think they could be on the back end of some pretty heavy results, and Namibia and Canada as well. So I'd actually going to go for a guy I think's been sensational, not just for South Africa, but for Toulouse in the top 14. I think Cheslin Colby, he's probably about 2 foot high, but you know he can sidestep anyone in a phone box and embarrass players. And I think he's got the potential to run in a vast number of tries in the World Cup.
Yeah. Okay, guys. Agreeing, disagreeing? We're going to go somewhere else.
Yeah, well, I think that pool will probably bring someone. I think you look at the other, you know, maybe the teams that play Russia. You know, Russia are probably a bit late into the mix. I think they lost to Jersey by 50 points the other day, so that doesn't bode well for a World Cup. But you know, you probably think the teams in that pool will rest their key guys that play a lot, and some guys that haven't played a lot of rugby will play in that Russian game. So they're probably, you know, someone might pick up a hat trick or, you know, more than that. But I think coming from that pool B, you know, probably a Kiwi guy like Sevu Reece, who's just come onto the scene this year, knows his way to the try line, knows how to score tries, and will probably play a big role for both the important games against South Africa, but I think they'll have to play him a fair bit against guys like Italy, Canada and Namibia. So I think it's going to be a tough pool, but I think someone like that, or George Bridge from New Zealand as well.
Sevu Reece, you just mentioned him. He is actually the favourite, 8-1. So kind of good pick from you. We'll see how that unfolds. You can see a whole list of everyone else as well on the screen right now. But Lloyd, do you agree with these guys? But again, it's someone that's going to play pretty much every match, isn't it? You can't just kind of go out and have a high-scoring game and he sits on the bench for the rest of the tournament.
Yeah, I think probably a safe bet could be like Johnny May as well. He always finds his way to the try line. I know he hasn't done in these games, but especially in the pool, he's going to be wanting to cross the line quite a lot. So, you know, a lot of it's got to work out for him, but he's always a fairly safe guy to put your money on because he crosses the line a lot. So
he's actually, in fact, 11-1 as well. So not quite the favourite, but one to kind of bet on if you are a betting man, that is, of course. Right, now let's look to our next market, and that is top point scorer. Again, this could go anywhere, couldn't it? Top point scorer. I mean, that's quite a hard one to bet on.
Yeah.
Especially when we haven't even kicked a ball yet.
Yeah, you're looking at me first.
I'm looking at you first, Tom, putting you on the spot.
Great.
We're going to go down this line. There's lovely green emerald sofa here.
I will go for someone out of the same group, and I will go with Richie Mwunga from New Zealand. I think he'll probably play a bit against those lesser teams, and I'm assuming that New Zealand might score a few points, so he'll be kicking quite a bit, I think. So I'm going to go with a kicker. And I hope that's right.
You don't sound too convinced.
No, I don't. No,
you sound quite confused in there, don't you?
I've sort of confused myself in my own mind. So I'll go Richie Mwunga, yes.
And who would you maybe look towards then as a top point scorer?
I was actually thinking Beauden Barrett just because I think he'll play later on in the competition. He scores a lot of tries, and although his goal kicking maybe over the last 12 months hasn't been great, I still think he'll still kick goals, and he's pretty much a cert to score most games, so that's what my thinking was.
James, you're nodding kind of in agreement there. Do you wish you'd have picked him?
No, look, I think what Lloyd's saying is correct. He scores a lot of tries, and if he is the goal kicker, he obviously kicks points as well. Although he hasn't kicked as well as a lot of people would like, but he is the fact that he kicks goals and scores tries sort of adds to the points table. But look, yeah, I think a guy like that. I'm trying to think, a guy like Johnny Sexton, although I don't think he'll play as many games, but he's pretty prolific with the boot, doesn't miss many, so he's another guy in those tournaments that might, kick a lot of goals as well.
Right, so let's go for our next segment, and we're calling this Top of the Props. Guys, did you like that?
I did. I see.
Boom, you may do something there. Come on, guys, work with me. Okay, key battles on the pitch. I mean, that's what we're going to have a discussion about here. I want it to be an open discussion from you guys. Key battles. Let's go for the pool games first. Pool A, where are we going to see, I guess, everything happening?
I think you can't look much further from that Scotland-Ireland game.
Yeah.
And then it comes down to two players, and one guy that James mentioned, he hasn't played a huge amount of rugby and might not play a huge amount of rugby for Ireland in the World Cup, but Sexton, his role for Ireland I think is really important, and on the other side of that, Finn Russell for Scotland. When he's hot, he is you can't touch him. He changed that game in the Six Nations. After 40 minutes, Scotland dead and buried, turned it on his head, and he ran riot. So it's an interesting sort of comparison between those two players, and perhaps how those two perform sees the way that group goes.
Yeah, I think it's a big one. I think you got to look at the way that they're trying to play rugby. Yeah, Scotland are obviously trying to play this up-tempo game with Finn Russell, who's takes the ball to the line, likes to use the width of the pass, whereas Sexton's probably more of a tactical kicker, a tactical organiser of the game, and probably the best in the world. With Conor Murray inside him, they're probably one of the best halves pairings in world rugby. So they're going to rely so heavily on those two to steer them around the park. And if that doesn't happen, if Scotland can get and disrupt their flow, you could see a little bit of an upset there.
Okay, let's go to a next market then. The dark horses of the tournament. Who do you think is going to surprise us? Okay, I'm going to give you a couple of...
First shot. First shot.
No, I'm not first. I'm going to go Argentina, 40-1. Scotland, 40-1. Japan, 150-1. Fiji, 500-1. And Georgia, 1,000
Just to win
to
it.
1. Yeah.
I won't go with Georgia.
I'd go Fiji. I think Fiji at 400-1 is
500-1.
500-1. I mean and Japan are much shorter than that. I would flip it. I would have thought it would be the other way.
Realistically, looking at the pools again, do you think you're going to see many upsets based on the warm-up matches and the form at the moment?
I think you might see upsets in the pool games. I just think once you get to the quarters and the semis, that's where it just becomes lockdown, and you see the big teams, chucking everything at it. You see teams going with their full 23.
This because schedule comes into things, a lot of games being played.
Yeah, it's player management and everything, which Lloyd will, still playing, will know about. It's really important.
Yeah, striking that balance is important. It'll be tough because there'll be games there where I think they won't want to play certain players, but it'll be important to the players that they're playing, just so they can take some momentum into these big games. So striking the balance, and it'll be massive. I think it'll play a big part in the whole World Cup.
And I guess how difficult is it to get up for certain games? Obviously, the first game, it shouldn't be a problem, but England-Tonga is a game they would hope they're going to kind of cruise through, isn't it?
Yeah, a little bit. I think that although it is the opening game for them, so that there's been so much work going into the tournament, you want to play, and there might be, throughout the tournament when you're playing, I guess, lesser opposition, there's an opportunity for guys to might get their first chance to stake a claim if they're going to make in the quarterfinals. If you play well this game, why wouldn't they pick you for the quarterfinals and for the bigger game? So it's there's a lot riding on it, and it is more of a complex sort of situation. But I think the fact that it's a World Cup, it's once every 4 years. These opportunities don't come around that often. So it's the excitement levels, and these guys have been building for this for a long, long time.
And I guess in Rugby World Cups, we never particularly get a surprise winner, would you say? As in to win the tournament. You kind of always pretty much know who's going to win.
One of New Zealand, Australia, South Africa, and England.
It's probly about that 4, I reckon.
I wasn't.
Sorry,
Wales.
You came late. It's fine. We can still. Yeah, it's fine. Doesn't matter.
No, I think the problem is the gap between the Tier 1 and the Tier 2 nations now is growing, and you'll get the odd surprise, as we've just talked about, in the pool stages. But when it comes down to it, when everyone's focused, these teams are so much more advanced now. It's and you end up with the same guys in the same positions going at it. It makes it exciting for us to watch.
And how do you think Ireland are going into this competition feeling right now?
I think they don't want to be the number 1 team in the world. I think they want to be. I don't think they want to be the underdog. That's sort of what they, from an outsider, what I think of the Irish is that they like being the small little country that's batting above their weight, that fighting against the big boys, and they use that emotional, drive to push on and have big performances. They don't want to be going in saying we're the best, we're on top, everyone's chasing us. They want to be the chasers, and I think Joe Schmidt probably doesn't want to be number 1 in the world going into a World Cup, because now everyone says, this is the number 1 test team in the world, we're going to have to beat these guys. And that's where I think the emotion of, being the underdog is what they sort of thrive off at times.
Guys, this is a tough one. I hate asking this before the competition's even started. Outright winner.
I think you're pretty hard pushed to look away from New Zealand still. But it's quite interesting in terms of who gets out of that pool. And I mentioned it, a minute ago, that South Africa's run is not as bad as maybe New Zealand's would be if it fell the way I think the results will go. I think England would. That's should they get past Australia and Wales in the quarters. They could end up whoever ends up, they'll end up playing New Zealand in the semis, and that's a pretty tough run. I think you might see South Africa.
Yeah, I think South Africa have probably been the most consistent out of the Southern Hemisphere teams, particularly, and probably of all the teams over the last couple of months, they've probably had the most consistent performances when they're chopping and changing their side. They've got some great depth. I mean, they could probably field 2 or 3 forward packs that any Test country would love to have. And I think that if they continue to play the way they've been playing with their confidence, particularly with their outside backs playing, on these quicker pitches, wanting to play a bit more up-tempo, then it's probably not the traditional South African game, which has been sort of the slugfest of just big bodies running over the top of you. They're trying to move the ball a little bit more. There's no reason why they can't get there. I think we spoke about it before. New Zealand, South Africa, England and Australia, I think, are your 4 semi-finalists, and then it's almost a toss of a coin who wins those games.
Well, I hope Lloyd has something to say about that, because Wales wasn't mentioned in there. So surely you're going to turn to him and say, oh, excuse me, I need to have my opinion here.
Well, no, I was going to go with South Africa myself as well. Actually, just reiterate what the lad's saying. I think they can play that type of game. But they can also play the physical game. So, I do think it's for the first World Cup where it's a bit more, where I wouldn't be surprised if 1 out of maybe 4 or 5 teams did win it. But I think when it gets to those stages, the fact that these teams have been there before and they just know what type of rugby it takes to win it, I think that'll be the difference. And I think that's where probably South Africa and New Zealand have the edge. How
unique do you think the World Cup will be being played in Japan?
I think it's going to be an amazing tournament. I think they've hosted big sporting tournaments before, and of course they've got the Olympics going after the Rugby World Cup. But I just think the whole balance of, that a nation is going to get behind something. The Japanese will do it in amazing style. The cultural side is vastly different to anything that Rugby World Cup's ever experienced before, which I think will be amazing. It's pretty big comparison to hosting it in England. Yeah. I think the fans and supporters that are going over there will have probably the best time. I was lucky enough to go on a pre-season tour to Japan, and it was amazing. I think it's going to be one of the best tournaments we've seen, just not only from a rugby perspective, but
yeah, I think the Japanese are, as I said, a very proud country, and they want to know that this is their country being shown to the world, and they'll all want to be able to put on the best show possible and make it enjoyable for everyone that comes. So I think it'll be a fantastic World Cup.
And I guess, as you said, it's like a pre-event before the Olympics next year as well. They're not going to disappoint, knowing that all eyes are going to be on them in, again, 12 months' time.
Yeah, and you look at some of the stadiums that the guys will be playing in. They're indoor stadiums. They're multi-purpose. This is a country that is fully prepped for hosting a world tournament like this.
Well, we kind of went a little bit off on a tangent, but I'm going to say tell you exactly what the outright winner odds were. So to win, New Zealand are favourites, 5-4. South Africa 9-2. England 4-1. Wales 9-1. Ireland 10-1. Australia 14-1, and France 33-1. More interesting now that I've just given you those odds?
I'd still take South Africa.
9-2.
Actually,
Australia's not a bad shout there, I think, because I think we'll go quite deep into the tournament. So, and then we can beat anyone on our day. So, I think they're probably the longest odds out of the teams that you probably expect to get to the Final Four.
Lloyd?
Yeah, I'd have to agree. Australia simmer nicely going into this championship. And like history says, that they're always there or thereabouts. So that'll be worth it. And I think, England are I've quite fancied those odds as well.
If you had a spare £1, it might be worth sticking on the French.
Damn it, I haven't got it in my pocket right now.
Maybe.
French?
They could be really random.
Anything could happen.
Literally. They could turn up and beat everyone. It might be worth a spare £1 you find on the side of the sofa.
There we go. Well, thank you very much for joining us, guys. Thank you guys for watching at home. We hope it's given you a bit more of an insight on where you should put your money. And these guys obviously from giving their in-depth analysis for the first round of fixtures. Make sure you subscribe to the Racing Post YouTube channel and then follow us on all the social medias, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. And that's all from us. I hope you've enjoyed watching, and goodbye.